So I'm sure most fans at some point have engaged in a game of stick cricket. This evening, we're actually delighted to welcome the CEO and the founder, of course, of Stick Sports himself, Paul Collins. Paul, welcome to the 212 Men.
Thank you very much, and I'm very, very happy to be here, actually. Really excited
Good,
to talk to you
good.
guys.
Me and Bot grew up as friends, and I think our sort of earliest memories of stick cricket was the World Domination game.
Yes.
Yeah, playing the World Domination game through the summer holidays and trying to beat each other's scores. I know other people have found themselves perhaps on the way, or some of the various different versions you've brought over the years, but can you perhaps give us an insight to where the journey began for yourselves?
It is. So in terms of when it was, because you are quite young men, I imagine. You look very young.
1994.
94. So you're born 94. So we started just about 10 years after that. And so it actually started 2005. It was the Great Ashes victory.
Yeah.
In the UK, actually. It was one at home, and we had just produced this game. And what it was we started off as a company doing flash games. They were on your browser-based games, and it was at a time when, you know, this is all before TikTok and social media and all that kind of things. What did people do all day long? So they used to play these little games via their browser, and they would send them to each other, and that's how it worked. And so we came across this game which was built by an Australian guy who was really keen on cricket. And he had designed it at home, just actually going to and fro from the office, so on his laptop. And he was looking to find a market for it. And our job was to find games like this and go and find a market for it. So we picked it up, we did a deal with him, and then we went straight to Cricinfo and said, look, would you like to do a deal with this? And thankfully they said yes. So we ended up launching with Cricinfo to all of their audience, and we launched stickcricket.com online, and it was this game with, you know, multiple versions of the game, run chase, and then the famous World Domination game, which was extremely hard to complete, and purposefully so. I mean, we broke every rule, a game design rule there is, because we made it really hard. But that, strangely enough, for this particular game, meant it was very popular. Well, people came back to it over and over again. Surprisingly, they didn't get bored of it. They just wanted to sort of break past the barrier, the skill barrier. So that's really where we started, and we went throughout. Since we were doing lots and lots of deals with brands and advertisers, mostly sponsorship deals throughout the 2000s. Working with KFC in Australia, would you believe? We had because they're big sponsors of cricket over there.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually tried to ring them up here in the UK and spoke to their agency, and they said, "What? Hang on, you want us to sponsor cricket? We're KFC. It's not quite our thing." Okay, fine. And we did deals with pension companies, banks in the UK, and South Africa, all sorts of places, and India, of course, as well.
Well, Paul, I'm really glad that you said that it's a difficult game, because I cannot tell you, through my youth trying to get to the end of World Domination, how many hairs were torn out. I really struggled. In terms of I remember going back to 2005. I remember it playing it in primary school. It feels like an omnipresent of cricket games. When I think of cricket games, you know, things have come and gone along the years. Brian Lara cricket, this cricket, that cricket. Stick cricket feels like the omnipresent. Why do you think it's lasted the test of time?
Well, this is it. This is the interesting point. It's not really a cricket game. It's a batting game. Look, what do kids wake up or dream about? They don't dream about, you know, setting, when it comes to cricket, they don't dream about, you know, setting a fielding frame that works, or, you know, they don't even dream about bowling that much. What they do dream about is hitting sixes, and that is essentially the core part of the game. Every ball can be hit for six that you play against, and that was a sort of a hook that we put into the game from the very beginning, and that really sort of captured people. Because they thought the only reason why they weren't succeeding was because of their outright failures, as it were. So it was possible to do, and that's what differentiate. I mean, it was a rule breaker in terms of designing a game, but it is what differentiated us from other games, which were more on a simulation base. They were designed around trying to simulate the world of cricket, and we were not trying to do that. So it was very arcadey, it was very pick up and go, very, very fast. All the other games have much slower timings than we are. Ours is very, very fast.
I'm still laughing about the complexities of this game, because I recall, I think, I'm obviously the All-Stars version of the World Domination, where you actually faced the bowling of some of the greats. You had Garfield, Curtly Ambrose, Shane Warne. And I recall doing so well, and I think Curtly Ambrose was bowling at me, and you have that sort of undignified dismissal where it's a short delivery in the head, and you fall back ungracefully onto your stumps. I think we both fell victims to that kind of dismissal, didn't we? And perhaps in online as well.
Yes, too often in reality.
So
that's right.
Have you yourself, Paul, noticed, you mentioned obviously in the wake of the 2005 Ashes, there had been a big cricket boom, of course. You know, woodworm bats was another one. Every kid wanted a woodworm bat because Freddie Fitzgerald and Kevin Peterson both used those. But have you noticed trends throughout the cricketing time over the years that I guess have lent towards your direction?
Yeah, there is. I mean, there has moved. Obviously, the big shift for us was back in the move to mobile, which was as a result of the smartphone market arriving. You know, this was late 2008, 2009. We jumped on and switched over in 2010. We thought this is the future of gaming. Browser-based was becoming more and more difficult. People weren't playing at their desktops anymore, but they were playing on their mobiles. So we jumped on, and then we were quite early adopters. I mean, when we launched, we launched at Christmas on mobile. We just ported a version of Stick Cricket onto mobile. It was a very difficult job to do, but we did it, and we just sort of hacked it all together. And we launched on 2 days before Christmas, and we hadn't quite expected. Well, we didn't know quite what was going to happen, but we got to number 3 in the UK. Could you imagine for a summer sports title targeting men only? And it was unbelievable that we got there. I mean, we got to number 1 in Australia. We got to number 1 in all the other cricket playing nations for that weekend. It was extraordinary. But I mean, that was probably the biggest shift. So mobile, and it's undeniable today that there's the biggest part of the games industry. But within that, more recently, there's been some shift, and even within sports games, shift towards real money games and esports, and it's a sort of a shift where people are thinking, well, let me put some money behind it. I fancy my skills at this. So it's becoming skill-based gaming. There is some movement. There's actually very big in India. There's some very, very big companies. You probably know of Dream 11 and Mobile Premier League as well, which is their Dream 11 sponsor the Indian cricket team. It's absolutely phenomenal, the size of that company, how much growth they've done, seen, and it is predominantly around this idea of real money games, and clash style games, PvP, what we call PvP, player versus player. You want to be playing not against the computer, you want to be playing against a real person.
And we've seen that, I guess, across a lot of sporting games, aren't we now? I think, we talk about FIFA, the Ultimate Team transition. I was always manager mode, where you manage your team and you bought players you played against the computer. I still am to an extent, but now there's been so much. Lots of people have made businesses, haven't they, out of things like Ultimate Team?
They have. I mean, sorry, I didn't quite get. They did what out of it?
Ultimate Team's like it's a scenario on FIFA where I think you can buy certain players, can't you? And you compete against other people's dream teams that they sort of put together. Yeah,
I think that is exactly what Dream 11 does in cricket, and I mean, it's definitely where it's gone. I mean, we went down that path actually with our latest game, but we're not doing it with real money games. That's something. It doesn't suit necessarily all our markets, so our traditional markets, but we will look at it at some point. We will inevitably have to deal with that kind of thing. But it's a sort of separation of, if you think about a sport and a game which is sport themed, there's not necessarily one way of doing it. So there is room for the different ones. So we have simulation based games. Well, they're not simulation, they're management style games. So you've got Stick Cricket Super League, which you might have played on mobile. And that's a management style game. So you've got your team and you're sort of buying and selling players, and then you have to then put into a skill loop and try and score points with that, or score runs with that. And then we've also got a clash style game, which is Stick Cricket Live, where you're pitting yourself up against one other player, which you guys have been playing, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, and that is just a raw. Well, it's management as well, but you're managing your cards, as it were.
Yes.
But it's more of a raw skill-based thing against one other person.
Yes, we've been having a 3-match series. Rob is 2-0 up. I've really struggled. So
I'm not sure I'm that motivated for the dead rubber, Paul, but I might give him some time later on. He really struggled with the spin ball.
Yes,
It seemed to time in knots. It might have been the first ever maiden you'd received on the game, but I don't know. You'll hold all the records.
Yes, it's been quite embarrassing to put out to our social media followers. In terms of kind of the future for stick sports, stick cricket, I suppose we're seeing a lot of movement in cricket right now to potentially more and more of kind of a football model, a club-based model, and kind of also, I think there's been recent reports of Ian Botham bringing out NFTs. There's technology, and those movements in the two worlds of cricket and technology seem to be moving quite fast. What impact do you think that'll have on your world?
Well, it's funny you should talk about NFTs. We actually did a project 4 years ago with NFTs. We did a blockchain project about 4 years ago, and it was. I mean, the blockchain world goes up and down quite fast, very fast and very far. And we started this project 4 years ago because it sort of made sense. It made a lot of sense, and so we first of all I went to one of the big agencies in London who do sports management agencies, who work extensively with the ECB. In fact, with multiple sports franchises around the world, and we would talk to them about doing this, because what we wanted to do was introduce player-based NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, into a game which would make them playable. So we did all this 4 years ago, and then you'd also need to have some token-based structure to be able to exchange value in this. So it is inevitable that this is going to happen in the games world, because it's a model that has existed previously. There are, when you're buying. When you're building up your character or building up the tools which you're using inside the game, they're virtual goods, and they have value to you. This notion that you should, the moment you remove the game or you get bored of the game, they should be valueless is ridiculous. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to resell them to somebody else who might see value in them. Of course, it changes radically the business model for games companies, but we've had multiple changes in business model. I mean, when we first started, the idea of free to play was quite a novel system, and very few companies were doing that. And when we launched on mobile originally, there was a big debate internally as to whether we were going to charge £1 to download the game, or we were going to give it to you for free and then charge a few £2 or £3 for additional things inside the game. It's still always low cost, and thankfully we picked the right thing, and we went to free to play, and that became the biggest part of the mobile market. Going forward, this idea that you should own your parts of the assets which you've either bought or you've contributed towards, and then be able to resell them in some shape or form, makes perfect sense, and that's going to happen. Be it that the market is always up and down, and we've seen many projects that have worked a bit, but mostly failed ultimately, but they will ultimately, it will ultimately happen. We're going to just wait until we until it's got a little bit more mature before we launch.
Yeah, sure. And I guess, you know, we've obviously told you that we've grown up with the game, we have, and we've enjoyed it. But if you're, I guess, if you're new to stick sports or to stick cricket in particular, what would be your recommendation for where somebody starts? I mean, we've had good fun, obviously, this week in the head-to-head kind of thing in the live version, but is there any way
well, there's the thing. So if you're, I mean, there's two choices really. It depends on what you're looking for. If you want to beat a real people straight there and then, you have to play stick cricket live, because that puts you up straight away against somebody else online, and you're just in a 7 minutes worth of gameplay, and it's a win or lose scenario.
Yeah.
If you're more interested in the nuances of the sport, the different types of qualities of players and this, that, and the other, then you really want the management game, and that is Super League, Stick Cricket Super League. That's, you know, the vast thing. You play in seasons, you play multiple matches, and you're sort of trying to claw your way up the leagues.
And I'm right by saying I think I played that version. You know, the better you do, the better chance you've got of unlocking superstars, haven't you, and improving.
That's right. That's right.
Because
you earn virtual currency. You earn these sort of virtual dollars or whatever virtual dollars, and then you spend those dollars on better players.
And coaches, of course, isn't there? You can actually get coaches to improve your performance. So there's so many different variables that can make the game interesting, isn't
it? See, I'm hearing all this, and I'm still thinking about world domination. That is still in the back of my mind, I must admit.
And strangely enough, if you want to go back to world domination, the original stick cricket on its own, you can go and do that, and then go get smacked on world domination.
Yes.
Is it still really hard, or have you tried to make
it? No. It's still the same as it was. People think it changes. It doesn't. We are really, really conservative about keeping it the same way it was.
Yeah. Good job it's not like an arcade game, because all my coins would be gone like straight away. I'd beat this team of superstars.
I have been, yes, I've been playing over the weekend, and I am no closer than I'm to dominating the world than when I was 14. It's been quite the embarrassment, I must admit.
There must be a special prize for that, Paul, in some capacity.
For not achieving it, there's no prize for that.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, that's an incredible insight into stick sports. I think it was, you know, we've learned so much.
Great to talk to you.
Yeah, we've really enjoyed that. We usually put these to 15 minutes. We've gone slightly over, but thanks so much for your time, and we wish you all the best. Obviously, you know, developing the brand, the game in the future years.
Thank you very much, and good luck to you as well with your podcast.
Take care, Paul.
Cheers. Bye.